Lila never thought she'd be the type of person to post about her engagement on social media before telling her parents. But as she stared at the sparkling engagement ring on her finger, a stunning oval-cut diamond that Ethan had chosen perfectly, she couldn't help herself. The excitement was too much to contain. Ethan, her boyfriend of 3 years, had proposed just an hour ago during a quiet dinner at their favorite restaurant. Lila was still floating on cloud 9 as she adjusted the filters on her Instagram post. "Are you sure you don't want to call your mom first?" Ethan asked, leaning over her shoulder with a soft smile. Lila hesitated, her finger hovering over the post button. "Trust me, it won't make a difference," she said with a small laugh. "Remember last Thanksgiving when I told them I landed that big client at work?" Mom just nodded and immediately started talking about how Daniel had been promoted to head surgeon at his hospital. Ethan frowned, wrapping an arm around her waist. "Maybe this time will be different. People change, Lila." She wanted to believe him, but 29 years of being the family afterthought had taught her otherwise. The memories were endless. Her high school art exhibition, where her parents left early to attend one of Daniel's medical school events. Her college graduation, where they spent more time bragging about Daniel's residency than acknowledging her degree in interior design. Even when she landed her dream job at a prestigious design firm, her mom's first response was, "That's nice, dear, but did you hear Daniel just bought a new house?" Lila sighed, leaning into Ethan's embrace. "I don't know why I keep expecting things to change. It's always been Daniel this, Daniel that." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "Well, they'll have to pay attention now. You're getting married, Lila. This is your moment." She smiled faintly and hit post. The caption read, "He asked, and I said yes, can't wait to spend forever with you, Ethan." Barely 2 hours later, her phone buzzed with an incoming call. She glanced at the screen and smirked, showing it to Ethan. "Here we go." "Lila Marie Carter!" her mother's voice shrieked through the speaker. "How dare you announce your engagement on social media before telling your own mother? I had to find out from Aunt Susan, who saw it on Facebook. What kind of daughter does that?" Lila bit back the response she'd been holding in for years. Maybe if you cared about my life, you'd be the first to know about important moments like this." Instead, she kept her voice neutral. "Hi, Mom. I was going to call you tonight." "Never mind that now," her mother interrupted, her tone shifting from angry to excited so quickly it gave Lila whiplash. "We simply must have the engagement party at our house. We'll invite the whole family. The Petersons, the Hendersons. Oh, and the Clarks just got back from Europe." Lila caught Ethan's eye and mouthed, "Help me," as her mother rattled off what sounded like half the state's population. "Actually, Mom," Lila began hesitantly, "Ethan and I were thinking of having a small celebration at—" "Nonsense!" her father's booming voice cut in. Apparently she was on speakerphone. "This is not up for discussion, Lila. We're hosting the engagement party and we'll cover all the costs. It's what proper parents do." Lila's eyebrows shot up. Proper parents? Since when? Before she could object, her mother was already talking about caterers and flower arrangements. Somehow, Lila found herself agreeing, just to end the conversation. After she hung up, Ethan pulled her close. "See? They want to be involved. That's good, right?" Lila nodded slowly, trying to ignore the knot of unease forming in her stomach. "Yeah, maybe you're right. Maybe they're finally seeing me as more than just Daniel's little sister." The days following her parents' phone call were surprisingly peaceful. Ethan kept teasing her with his signature grin, saying, "I told you so," every time her mom called with updates about the engagement party. Lila started to think, just maybe, things were changing. Her mom, Martha, was surprisingly efficient at planning. Every detail was meticulously thought out. Hand-calligraphed invitations, a custom cocktail menu, and even a string quartet. Lila hated to admit it, but her mom was good at this. "Your mom called again," Ethan said one evening as Lila walked through the door after work. "She wants to know if you prefer the string quartet to play classical or contemporary pieces." Lila flopped onto the couch, kicking off her heels. "At this point, they can play the SpongeBob theme song for all I care. At least I don't have to deal with any of it." Ethan chuckled, handing her a glass of wine. "Well, at least she's excited about it." "Excited about the attention, you mean," Lila muttered, taking a sip. Despite her reservations, Lila found herself looking forward to the party. Maybe this was her parents' way of finally showing they cared. But then, 2 weeks before the engagement party, everything changed. It was a Friday afternoon when Lila's phone buzzed with a call from her mom. "Lila, you need to come to the house right now," Martha said, her voice tense. "It's urgent." Lila spent the rest of the workday distracted, wondering what could possibly be so urgent about a party that was already planned down to the last detail. When she arrived at her parents' house, she immediately knew something was off. The sound of children's laughter echoed through the house. Her nephew Lucas and niece Emma were running circles around the living room. Sitting on the couch was her older brother Daniel, looking disheveled and exhausted. His wife Sophia sat beside him, her eyes red and puffy. "What's going on?" Lila asked, setting her purse down. Sophia let out a choked sob, and Martha immediately wrapped an arm around her. "Daniel and Sophia are going through a rough time," her mom said softly. Lila's stomach dropped. "What do you mean?" Sophia dabbed at her eyes with the tissue. "We're separating," she whispered. "Daniel, he cheated on me." Lila's jaw nearly hit the floor. Daniel? The golden child? The perfect son? The one her parents had spent her entire life comparing her to? "I'm so sorry, Sophia," Lila said sincerely. Despite her complicated feelings about her brother, she wouldn't wish this on anyone. But before she could say more, Daniel snapped, "This isn't your business, Lila." Lila raised her hands in surrender. "I'm just trying to be supportive." Daniel glared at her, but before he could say anything else, Martha cleared her throat. "Lila, your father and I have been talking, and given the circumstances, we think it's best to cancel the engagement party." Lila blinked, sure she had misheard. "What?" "With everything Daniel and Sophia are going through, it just doesn't feel right to celebrate right now," Martha explained. Lila felt like the air had been sucked out of the room. "Mom, you can't be serious. The invitations have already gone out. People are flying in from out of state." Daniel, who had been silent until now, suddenly exploded. "God, Lila, you're so selfish. My whole life is falling apart, and all you care about is your stupid party." Lila stared at him, stunned. "This isn't about being selfish, Daniel. This is about the fact that my engagement has nothing to do with your divorce." "You should have offered to cancel it yourself," Daniel shot back. "But no, you're too self-centered to think about anyone but yourself." Lila turned to her parents, hoping for some semblance of rationality. "Mom, Dad, please. This is crazy. You can't just cancel everything because Daniel's upset." Martha straightened her spine, putting on the stern expression Lila had come to dread. "Actually, I can. I already called the caterer this morning to cancel. The decorations have been called off too, and I've started letting the guests know the party is postponed due to a family emergency." Lila felt like she'd been punched in the stomach. "You did what?" "It's for the best," Richard chimed in, his voice firm. "You need to think about the bigger picture, Lila. Family comes first." Lila's voice rose despite herself. "Family comes first? You mean Daniel comes first? He's always come first. My entire life, I've been second to him. And now you're literally canceling my engagement party because he's having a hard time?" "How dare you?" Daniel shouted, standing up. "I knew you were jealous of me, but this is a new low." Lila grabbed her purse, her whole body shaking with rage. You know what? Congratulations, Daniel. You win. You've always been the favorite, and now you've ruined one of the most important moments of my life. Message received, loud and clear. She stormed out of the house, ignoring their calls for her to come back. When Leela got home, Ethan was waiting for her with a concerned look on his face. Leela, what happened? You weren't answering your phone. She collapsed onto the couch and told him everything. By the time she finished, Ethan was shaking his head in disbelief. They may canceled the party, he asked. Not just canceled it, Leela said bitterly. They're telling everyone it's because I'm having relationship problems. They're making me the villain to protect Daniel. Ethan pulled her into a hug. Hey, remember what we originally wanted? A small, intimate celebration with the people who actually care about us. Let's do that. Leela looked up at him, her eyes filled with tears. You really think we can pull it off? Ethan smiled. I happen to have a sister who's basically a professional event planner. He grabbed his phone and started dialing. Emma, we've got a situation. Can you help us put together a restaurant party for the original engagement date? Leela could hear Emma's enthusiastic voice through the phone. Are you kidding? I've been waiting for you to rescue this party from your mom since day one. Give me an hour. I'll call in some favors. For the first time that day, Lila felt herself smile. The next few days were a whirlwind of planning. Emma, true to her word, worked her magic. She secured a private room at a cozy Italian restaurant, ironically the same place where Ethan had taken Leela on their first date. The decorations were simple but elegant, with soft string lights, fresh flowers, and personalized touches that made it feel intimate and special. Lila felt a sense of relief as she watched everything come together. This was what she had wanted all along, a celebration that was about her and Ethan, not a spectacle for her mother's social media or a stage for her brother's drama. But the relief didn't last long. 2 days before the party, Lila's phone rang. It was Sophia. Lila, I need to talk to you, Sophia said, her voice hesitant. What's going on? Leela asked, already bracing herself for more bad news. Sophia hesitated for a moment before saying, I know your parents canceled your engagement party because of Daniel, and I think you deserve to know the truth. Lila frowned. What do you mean? Sophia took a deep breath. Daniel didn't just cheat on me once. He's been having affairs for years. I found messages, hotel receipts, even pictures, and when I confronted him, he blamed me. He said I wasn't supportive enough, that I was too focused on the kids. He's been spinning this story to make himself look like the victim, and your parents are eating it up. Lila's stomach churned. Are you serious? I have proof, Sophia said. Messages, emails, everything. I thought you should know. Lila sat in stunned silence, her mind racing. Her parents had canceled her engagement party to protect Daniel, the golden child, the perfect son, and all the while he was the one who had destroyed his own marriage. Would you be willing to share this with me? Lila asked carefully. I think it's time the truth came out. Sophia hesitated but eventually agreed. I'll send you everything. The night of the engagement party arrived, and the restaurant looked beautiful. 30 of Lila and Ethan's closest friends and family filled the private dining room, their laughter and warmth creating the kind of atmosphere Lila had always dreamed of. For a while, everything felt perfect. Lila was surrounded by people who genuinely cared about her, and for the first time in weeks, she felt truly happy. But then, during the appetizers, her Aunt Susan pulled her aside. Leela, honey, I need to tell you something, Susan said, clutching her wine glass. Your mother called me yesterday. She was saying some awful things about you. Lila's heart sank. What did she say? And said you were being selfish for going ahead with the party, Susan continued. She said it was like twisting the knife in Daniel's back after everything he's been through. She even told me not to come, but I couldn't miss this. I wanted to support you. Lila's stomach churned as other relatives began chiming in. He called me too, Uncle Mike said, shaking his head. told me you were being a terrible daughter and sister for not canceling the party," she said. "Having this party was disrespectful to Daniel," Cousin Rachel added. "She made it sound like you were the bad guy." Lila looked around at the confused and hurt faces of her relatives. She felt a surge of anger and determination. The lies had gone on long enough. Lila stood up, raising her voice to get everyone's attention. "Everyone, can I have your attention for a moment?" The room fell silent as all eyes turned to her. Lila took a deep breath, her phone in hand. "There's something you all need to hear," she said, her voice steady. She pressed play on the recording Sophia had sent her. Daniel's voice filled the room, clear and steady, as he detailed his affairs, the lies he had told, and the way he had manipulated everyone around him to maintain his image. For the next 15 minutes, the room was silent, except for the sound of Daniel's voice. Aunt Susan's wine glass froze halfway to her mouth. Uncle Mike's fork clattered onto his plate. Cousin Rachel covered her mouth with her hand, her eyes wide with shock. When the recording ended, Lila looked around the room. "My parents knew the truth," she said, her voice trembling with emotion. "They knew everything about Daniel, but they were still willing to cancel my engagement party to protect his lies. They chose to hurt me, again, just to keep up appearances for their precious firstborn." The silence that followed was deafening. Then, one by one, her relatives began to speak. "I can't believe this," Aunt Susan said, shaking her head. "I always thought Daniel was so perfect." "This is disgusting," Uncle Mike muttered. "And your parents went along with it?" Leela nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. "They did, but I'm done letting them control my life. I'm done being second to Daniel." Ethan stood up, raising his glass. "Let's focus on what really matters today," he said, his voice warm and steady. "We're here to celebrate Lila and our future together. Thank you all for being here and for supporting us." The room erupted into applause and the party continued, warmer and more genuine than before. For the first time, Leela felt truly seen by her extended family. As the party wound down, Lila found herself sitting at a small table with Ethan, Emma, and a few of her closest friends. The warm glow of the string lights reflected in her glass of champagne as she finally allowed herself to relax. "You did the right thing," Emma said, giving Lila's hand a reassuring squeeze. "Your parents and Daniel have been walking all over you for years. It's about time someone stood up to them." Leela nodded, though a part of her still felt conflicted. I didn't want to hurt anyone, but I couldn't let them keep lying, not about this." Ethan wrapped an arm around her shoulders. "You didn't hurt anyone, Lila. You told the truth. If they're upset, it's because they're finally being held accountable for their actions." Lila smiled faintly, leaning into him. "I don't know what I'd do without you." "You'll never have to find out," Ethan said with a grin, kissing her temple. The next morning, Lila woke up to a flurry of missed calls and texts from her parents. She stared at her phone, debating whether to answer. "Don't," Ethan said from the kitchen where he was making coffee. "You don't owe them anything right now." Lila hesitated but ultimately agreed. She silenced her phone and joined Ethan at the table. Later that afternoon, however, her mom showed up at her apartment unannounced. "Layla, we need to talk," Martha said, her tone sharp as she stood in the doorway. Leela crossed her arms, blocking the entrance. "There's nothing to talk about, Mom. You lied to everyone about me, about Daniel, and you canceled my engagement party to protect him. What else is there to say?" Martha's face flushed with anger. "I was trying to keep this family together. Do you have any idea how humiliating it is to have everyone know about Daniel's mistakes? I was doing what I thought was best for all of us." "No, Mom," Leela said firmly. "You were doing what was best for Daniel. You've always done what's best for him, no matter how much it hurt me, and I'm done with it." Martha's expression faltered. "Lila, you don't mean that." "I do," Lila said, her voice steady. "I'm not going to keep sacrificing my happiness to protect Daniel's image. If you can't accept that, then maybe it's better if we take a break from each other." Martha stared at her, stunned. "You're really choosing Ethan over your family?" Lila shook her head. "I'm choosing myself, Mom. For once in my life, I'm putting myself first." Without another word, she closed the door, her heart pounding. In the weeks that followed, Lila focused on building a life that made her happy. She and Ethan began planning their wedding, this time on their own terms. They decided on a small ceremony in the mountains, surrounded by the people who truly cared about them. Lila's relationship with her extended family grew stronger. Many of them reached out after the engagement party, apologizing for believing her parents' lies and expressing their support. As for her parents and Daniel, Lila kept her distance. They continued to call and text, but she ignored most of their attempts to reach her. She knew it would take time, if it ever happened at all, for them to truly understand the damage they had caused. One evening, as she and Ethan sat on their balcony watching the sunset, Lila felt a sense of peace she hadn't experienced in years. "You know," she said, resting her head on Ethan's shoulder, "I used to think family was everything, that no matter what you had to stick by them." Ethan kissed the top of her head. "And now I know that family isn't just the people you're born to," Lila said softly. "It's the people who love you, support you, and want the best for you. And I'm lucky to have that. With you, with Emma, with everyone who showed up for us." Ethan smiled, pulling her closer. "You deserve all of it, Lila. And more." As the sun dipped below the horizon, Lila felt a weight lift from her shoulders. For the first time in her life, she was free to live on her own terms, surrounded by the people who truly mattered. And that, she realized, was the greatest gift of all.